was up. I was feeling reflective about something, and I wanted to share what I was thinking about it because I think that I often want to create conversations with people, and I feel this urge inside of me that I want to talk about something, and then life just doesn't bring up the opportunity to do so, and it just gets pushed past, and I never end up voicing it. So I figured I'd just create this video, and if anybody is interested in what I'm talking about, because it's gonna be a very not angry rant, like a reflection, then that's cool. Hopefully, yeah, it'll find the right people. But anyway, I wanted to talk about what I was thinking about depth of connection with other people, and maybe some people can relate to how my need for depth of connection, if I'm going to put the energy into creating that connection, sometimes leaves me without as many friends, or it used to leave me feeling like internalizing a lot of things as I'm not worth it, and this is a reflection on me not being good enough, or something's wrong with me. And I don't want to get into why my brain might work exactly the way that it does, because I don't want that to discredit or to cause somebody to lean one way or another because of relating on some personal level. I feel like what I'm about to say is not necessarily objectively true. It's just my experience, and I think that it's of value outside of why I might think the way that I do or about my personal experiences. I think it can stand alone, and I could get into the rest of it on a personal level or in another video maybe in the future, if I need to or should, or someone asks. But anyway, so depth of connection is very important to me, and I think a lot of people say it's important to them and claim to value like having truth and communication, but sometimes I wonder if that's very true when there's not, in a connection, trying to establish one, effort given to mutual respect and of the other's sovereignty, or one's own even. And I don't see that as, but everyone is on their own path, headed to different personal goals based on their own core values, and I don't assume to know which way is the right way, or that there is such a thing, and I have to remind myself of this constantly as I feel the temptation to make myself other to another instead of choose to understand experience shapes unique perspectives and personalities into each of us. That being said, for myself, if I do not feel that a connection I have made or am about to make has depth, or the possibility of depth, or what I consider depth, I will cease to exert energy on that connection, or not. I won't even begin to. And that's why most of my friendships do not make it past a certain stage of like establishing it. There's other reasons for me personally, socially, why they don't go past a certain stage, or how some of my actions or inactions or whatever might be perceived as not caring or caring too much. But anyway, it won't get past a certain stage because it's going to require a lot of energy, not just for myself, but for the other person, to maintain a more intimate or strongly bonded connection with me. I recognize that it's not for everybody to meet this certain standard or do things exactly my way, and I don't assume that someone is going to do it my way, at least not at this point in my life, which has saved me a lot of stress and bad feelings towards myself that are my own doing because of expectation. So anyway, if I am putting energy into communicating something with someone about my feelings or about my desire to recognize their feelings, it's because I see a potential and a connection being worthwhile, or I know it to have a value to me already, and I want to give my best effort to preserve it. I am aware that this is not something all people want to sign up for. It is also a bit of a test that I am not intentionally creating for myself or for anyone else, of someone's ability to look at themselves in relation to me in an honest and sometimes trying way. I don't expect anything of anyone but myself, but it's enough that I only expected of myself that this would come up in my trying to build connections. Because if I need to always stay honest with myself and communicate things with another, and I don't see that energy being returned, or it is met with what I consider to be unnecessary defensiveness for how I decided to communicate it, or dismissiveness, or of course worse, that it's made out by the other person seemingly to be of zero or negative value, or as though my feelings can be evaluated at some at some value, by another person. I mean, that's not realistic. Everybody has their own value system for their experience, and each aspect of that experience, and it's never going to be accurate if I decide to choose the value of that for someone else. I choose to be honest with myself in that moment if I see someone responding with defensiveness or dismissiveness, and determine that the return on the connection is not going to be worthwhile for me, or more especially that it might actually have a negative net impact, and I'll just cease to try. Which, this is where a lot of people often process this as some kind of attack on their character, but it's like, really, for me, from my perspective, and as far as I can tell from my intention of doing so, it's just me upholding my own subjectively decided personal standard. And so I am unapologetic for it, not because I don't care about someone else's feelings. Like, I will definitely hear what those feelings are, but I know that that's what I need to do at this point in my life. It's something I had to learn through a lot of trial and error, and a lot of acceptance of sometimes loneliness, that's what I need to do to stay true to myself and create the connections that I want to, or allow for that to even happen. They may or may not decide to define the feelings and why they behave the way they do because of the subconscious conclusions. And in that case, what you get is one of a few things. The person is perceived to have ghosted the other, which is because most people's brains probably go into a defense mode, an energy conservation mode automatically. They know on a subconscious level that the interaction is going to cost them a lot of their resources, and if not in communicating it all, then also in the vulnerability of communicating it and being left to feel rejected if they do not receive validation for the vulnerable act of effort at all. They may start to doubt themselves and their decision to say something, because self-awareness and boundary setting and upholding those boundaries is an exhausting business. But it is very important to recognize that while it is exhausting, sometimes in the short term, it is nowhere near as draining and emotionally taxing as not doing so in many cases, if the alternative is just to stuff down all of one's own experience, and just sit with that and feel like things aren't right, and then you feel resentful, and you feel like it's some reflection of your value, all this, like the chain reaction that can happen for some people, and definitely for me. This isn't obviously the only reason why someone might ghost someone else. It's also just the possibility that someone doesn't have a huge value on someone else's experience, or they are not at the level of emotional intelligence to be consciously aware and considerate of another's experience. And this is valid too. I might not think, it might not be the right way for me, but I think it's a good practice in recognizing, like, this is where this person's at. And it doesn't mean that where they're at is less than where I'm at. Each person is going to be miles ahead of someone else on some level, and then maybe not as far on another. Or maybe they don't need to dig into all this. It's not for them. They don't want to do that. It's not going to cause them a big headache to not do it, and in fact, it might even cause them more strain to do it. People are battling their own past traumas, or just like they don't want to traumatize themselves with seeing reality for exactly what it is. It's not always great, it's definitely not always fun, and the blissful ignorance thing, is a real thing. And sometimes I have, that's not me. It's not the way my brain processes things. It's never gonna be me. I think I try to make it me by making certain behavioral choices of, just numb myself out, or tear myself apart over certain things, and say that I'm wrong for it and trying to change myself. But now that I've come to a place of acceptance, it might be best for me, but it's not for someone else, and I don't blame them. One can recognize that someone's not at this certain level of what they perceive to be emotional intelligence about something, and practice acceptance of differences, or in a connection not being a good fit for them, and bow out respectfully of the differences, and not needing to tell this person how they're wrong, because that's what I used to do when I was younger. So I go, gosh, if you cared about me, you would do this exactly like I'm doing it. Like, if you wanted to be my friend, if you were really my friend, well, you would match my energy on all of this thing. And like, why would I think that someone else is gonna be at a place where they feel like that's a value? Like, why would I expect that? I'm going to set that person up for feeling drained, and like, where is this coming from? And I'm judged, they might feel judged by me, and I'm also going to internalize all of that, like, oh, that means they don't value me. Maybe they do. Maybe that's the best that they can do, is just to say, like, this is not what I want to do. And that doesn't mean they don't care about me. It's just not what they want to do, and they don't have to. They don't have to do everything that I want. It doesn't mean I'm not of value. And that took me a really long time to understand that, and I lost friendships over it. Because not everybody wants to analyze things like this. I know it's not a shock to some of you, but not everybody wants to do it. That's not the only reason people ghost, and sometimes it's because they maybe just don't care, whether consciously or unconsciously. It's important to note that even though that's a possibility, to assume that that's what someone's doing, oh, they just didn't care about me, is really just a disservice to your own feelings, and to, like, if you're gonna say, like, oh, I'm so self-aware, and gosh, they are not, and they didn't care, like, I'm gonna assume that. I don't know if they're at that level, or whatever I think this level is, or what it should be, or whatever. They might just not know how, or care to know how, and it doesn't really make any difference. Like, they're not doing it, they're not doing it, and you don't need to make them feel like crap. And I still battle with this sometimes, of like going, I can't believe you did this, or hurt my feelings, and I keep doing it, instead of going, you know what, you keep doing this thing the way that you do it, and it doesn't feel good for me, and I should just create this boundary of, like, you know what, this is just not feeling good for me on enough of a regular enough basis that, like, maybe we just create a little more distance, or you understand why I check out sometimes, and we just don't talk about, whatever it is, or I just, we both decide that, we can respect each other, but we don't need to force friendship here when we naturally just don't gel. Another potential outcome for feeling like people are not recognizing your experience as valid, or that you are recognizing that you don't feel like you're able to communicate things, is to just overcorrect, which is probably one of my main things. Now that I've learned how to have any boundaries, you're just shoving away someone out of defensiveness, like, I shove someone away because my experiences are valid, and wow, it hurts so bad that they wouldn't recognize that. So I would have this expectation, you're supposed to meet my need, rather than just meeting it myself, like I was just talking about, by creating a boundary. And that's totally natural, and our brains want to defend us from pain, or we just want to explain something, over-explain something until we're blue in the face. But sometimes we recognize, like, the reason we might overcorrect is we recognize that's going to cost me a lot of energy. It's going to be extremely vulnerable to show that I care enough to even explain the thing. And what if I explain it and then they show me they don't give a shit? How is that going to feel for me? So they just shove the person away. They didn't even try to communicate the thing. They just automatically shove away. So anyway. And then another reaction, I think, is just to simply accept that that connection will never feel fully genuine, and accepting that it won't be as close as a person wants it to be. It's not worth the energy. I think that for me, this is like the main thing of like, I value being genuine with myself and other people so much, and my sovereignty so much, that to be a less genuine of myself is just not, a genuine version of myself is just not worth it for the sake of a connection, because it's never going to be the connection that I really want it to be. And I think I did this my entire life, especially after really important friendships to me fell apart. I just started to accept, like, okay, well, they won't accept you if you ask for this, or you need this, or you say that it's important to you. So just like give that up. And I internalized that as, why do none of these connections make me feel fed? Why do I feel shitty? I feel like I was masking so much of myself for the friendships, and they were never going to be the friendships that I wanted them to be. So anyway, the likelihood that those connections were ever going to meet that was basically impossible. But now I feel like I see it, nobody else is responsible for my boundaries or upholding them. Other people's sovereignty is just as important as my own, and my way is not the right way for all. It's only the right way for me. And in recognizing these things, I've come to accept myself and love myself in a much deeper way, so that the connections don't leave me not feeling good, but rather make me see that no matter what, I have myself and love myself, and I'll always be okay. So in recognizing these things, I've come to accept and love myself in a much deeper way, so that even if the connections don't work out, they don't leave me feeling not good enough or painfully lonely. I mean, I still experience that. And instead of making me feel like I'm not worthy, they especially prove to me that I know that I'm worthy, and that no matter what, I'm always going to be there for me. I know I can or will always show up in action for myself to show that I love myself. And I think that it's not fun to accept that other people aren't just going to fix our feelings for us. It's a lot harder work to fix them for ourselves. But I think that once we recognize that it's up to us, we stop feeling so damaged by the world. I think that if more people, I'm not saying my way is the right way, but I know for me, what it did. And I think that in accepting that other people aren't going to just do things the way that to make everything all okay for ourselves. I think that it would make a lot of us feel less wounded in relation to each other, and less ready to call another person the other and go my team versus their team. And we can understand each other at a deeper level and see that we're all trying, and we all have our own experiences that shaped who we are and what we need, and that no way is the right way, and we're responsible for stepping out of a situation if it's not meeting our standard or boundaries or whatever, because otherwise it just turns us against each other. So it makes us feel like we have it all figured out. Who has it figured out? None of us have it figured out all the way. None of us have it figured out all the way, because how could we possibly? You will never ever see everything the exact same way as me. Someone could have the same political views or same interest in music and same religious, whatever as me, or don't have the same as me, and it's never going to mean that we're the same, because you didn't live my life and I did not live yours. And so who am I to say that means you don't love me, that means you don't value me? Rather than like focus my energy on that, I can just focus it on what I choose to do for myself. And it's still a practice for me. It feels extremely vulnerable to create boundaries, and it makes me feel sometimes like a freak. Like, why do I care so much about all these things and other people just don't maybe care? But I have to remember that that does not mean I'm not of value, and I still battle with that, because it does make me feel like alone sometimes that I care about these things. But I've decided to just stop fighting it. It does matter to me. And why would you want a connection? I mean, that was about to sound really judgmental, but in my mind, why would you want a connection that's just like half-assed? This life is meant to have genuine feeling as far as the value that I've put on it. If I don't live genuinely, I don't feel genuinely, I don't let my heart just fully give itself to my connections, then like, why am I doing it? And honestly, it's like some days I wake up and I go like, this is hard and it hurts, and how are all these other people just going throughout their day like, I'm ready to live this day and I'm always going to live these days, but they don't want depth of connection, and they want, I just wonder what's the point. But they get to choose their own point. If their point is to make money, their point is to be whatever, this a status thing, or it's just to just not think about stuff and just have fun. It's good for them. You know, I love having a nice time myself, but then my brain kind of makes it harder work sometimes. But that's why I figure out these little shortcuts for me to just not exert energy where I shouldn't, and where it's not going to help me understand myself better and understand others better. It's not going to deepen my experience in life. So anyways, that was a huge rant that I'm going to have to edit out a little. But anyway, that's just what I was thinking. Love y'all. Bye.